So Linux gaming is doing well, and that makes me happy. For some of you that don't know, I have been using Linux on and off since early 2000. And I'm going to tell you, back in the day, if you tried to do Linux gaming, it was hard. I'm not kidding you. Wine was available, but configuring wine the right way was a pain. And you don't have like what you have today with the Steam Deck with Proton DB as a website that lets you know what works, what doesn't work, what settings you need, and everything. So we have really jumped since the days of like the late 1990s and early 2000s to today. But that doesn't mean that Linux still doesn't have some shortcomings. I'm going to get to it next. All right, so I'm a Linux fan. But there are still some things that even a guy like me that loves using Linux and its free tools still has some shortcomings. So let me go ahead and get to it. So the first thing is Linux gaming is more for the single player experience. And I know some of you would be like, that's a good thing, right? Well, I'm speaking for right now for those rare breed of competitive gamers out there. So, yes, there are a few competitive games that are supported by Proton DP. The Overwatches, the Apex Legends, got a few of them. But anti cheat as a whole does not work well with Linux. So if you're a competitive gamer and you're trying to play, I don't know, the Fortnites of the world, the CODs, and all that stuff, some problems with trying to switch from a Windows machine to a Linux machine for your everyday gaming. But I also know there's a different competitive breed out there that plays like Magic the Gathering online or Yu-Gi-Oh! Online or certain fighting games. If you're that breed of competitive gamer, it depends if the game is supported well or not. I remember back when the Steam Deck first came out, Yu-Gi-Oh! Wasn't really supported. I think it's supported now though, which tells you how fast that Proton DB is trying to correct and get a lot of games supported. And if you're a fighting game head, as long as the game doesn't use anti-cheat, you're fine. You can get your fight on all day, all night. But I'm still staying with my stance of, as a whole, if you're a competitive gamer, don't switch to Linux. So that's one shortcoming. But what's another? Well, another shortcoming with Linux is that media tools are better, but they're not perfect. So when I got into video editing and all that and trying to find alternatives to video editing in Linux, and this was back in, I would say, 2005. I think all that was available at the time was Shotwell, Eden Live, and darn it, I forget what the editor is. It's the editor the video editor that King's Speech was edited on. That everybody was talking about it at the time. I was like, oh, I want to try that on a Linux box. I got it installed, but I didn't understand how to use the interface at the time, so it was a problem. But yeah, those were like your main three. And even then, you didn't really have like really intuitive ways to deal with a lot of your media files. Like now you got stuff like Handbrake. You did have FFmpeg back then, but it was command line only. And me, I don't mind getting in command line, but if you're trying to tell someone that's used to GUI operating systems and explain to them, hey, you don't have to type in commands to get what you need done, they're not going to do it. Now you have DaVinci Resolve, which is great. It sucks that really on Linux, all you can really use is the DNG file, but you can still convert them after you've done your edits and all that stuff with Handbrake, and you can get a nice MP4 file. So Linux tools are better. They're not perfect. Not to mention the install for DaVinci Resolve it's not that it's not easy. It just has some extra steps versus like if you was installing it on Mac or Windows. So use case may vary, but that's just with DaVinci Resolve. If you're using some of the other editors that I mentioned, you're fine. But once again, container of formats and stuff like that can still be a problem, and you're still gonna have to convert it with a program like Handbrake or FFmpeg to get a usable file to put out onto the internet on YouTube or so forth. But that's not all the media tools you have now. You do get stuff like OBS, which is free and open source and works well in Linux. So instead of going the route of recording and then editing later, you could just live stream your stuff, and live streaming works well. However, I will mention that there's a other unique problem with using a program like OBS, and that all deals with how you install it. And I explain. A lot of us are using flat packs. If you're still an Ubuntu fan, snap packages to install apps into Linux. No big deal, right? Well, there is a problem, and that is you might still need to install a native Linux version versus a snap or a flat package version of OBS. And the reason why is because if you install the flat or snap version of the app, it might cut you off from certain devices that you plug in to use with your OBS software because it's in a container. Because how a flat package works is it's not native, it's contained. Like this lotion bottle, everything is contained in here until you pop it open and you squeeze it out. So it's the same thing. Think of it as, all right, this is my OBS. I hook up a USB device, but it's not connecting because it's separate from that. So that's why you have to get a native device so that way you can take this USB device and actually plug it in. So if everybody's following. So that's what another, it's not a shortcoming 100% per se. It's more about understanding how Linux works and how snaps and flat packages works. So you can get around it. But if people haven't seen this video or people are not educated on snaps and flats, packs, and everything, they'll just go ahead, Steam Deck or whatever other gaming device that they have right now that has SteamOS or Bazite installed and be like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and record and stream and fail because they installed it as a flat or snap package and not a native Linux app. And they're going to run into issues trying to connect devices and trying to get them seen in OBS versus, installing it natively so that way everything can be seen. It's just a small shortcoming, but we're getting there. It's getting better. All right. Well, I talked about media tools and I talked about games that not really supported by the competitive scene, but single player experience is great. But Linux does have another shortcoming, and it doesn't really have to do with gaming, but is something that I use a lot, and that's native DJ apps. So, like I said, been using Linux for every bit of 2000. Now, a DJ app I absolutely love, but this was also great for the time because DJ controllers were being made differently than how they were made now. So one DJ app I absolutely love, shout out to Ryan Belt, by the way. That dude's awesome. Wax was a open source DJ program where if you had a DJ controller that had the support for it, you could tell it, use this, is that, and you're good to go. So my early years of DJing when I was learning, I had like a Hercules RMX controller, but I also had like a Gemini G4V. I always get the G where the 4 goes and the V mixed up because I always want to say GV4, but it's not. It's G4V. Anyways, I had those controllers, and I also had my tractor controller. Those that don't know, I'm a native instruments guy. I'm thinking about switching to Denon, but for right now, I'm still a native instruments guy. But anyways, how DJ controllers were made back in the earlier days of DJ controllers I really like. I don't actually like how DJ controllers are made now. And I'll explain. DJ controllers back then had multi format support. So, for example, the Hercules RMX was made for virtual DJ, but it has support for Tractor, it has support for Serato. You can really use it on anything, as long as it had support for it. So a program like Wax was great for it because you had a controller that would also work in Linux environment and you just had to set it up and it was good to go. Also, there's this other program, never really got to play with it, Ultrastar. Ultrastar will also probably work with it very well as well with a controller like that. And the reason why I said shout out to Ryan Belt is because I had Ryan Belt take my G4V for like a week. And he actually sat there and made mappings and learned how to map G4V in Wax and mapped everything out so that it worked. And him and I would talk about, well, this works this way, this works that way. So he actually took the time to learn like the code, back code to Wax and everything to make a better mapping for it, which was awesome. But if you don't got a programmer in your back pocket trying to set up your DJ controller, if you're a DJ and you wanted to use a free operating system, which are many out there in the Linux world, DJing is still kind of because right now, especially more now than back then, you're seeing more and more proprietary devices. Pioneer, done it. Even though Tractor still got some open support, if you know how to unlock it, you have to do like little key combinations, almost like a game controller. I find it funny, but it's true. But for DJing, you have more and more proprietary stuff versus open format. And it kind of makes me sad because the start of like DJ controllers and all that stuff was very open, but now everything is very closed and very proprietary. And that really sucks. But I hope that maybe some of you out there, if you're a DJ out there and you like Linux, we need to start telling the Native Instruments of the world, the Pioneers of the world, the Denons of the world, is like, hey, I like your stuff, but can you make it where I can get some Linux support on it, please? Please? Because I would love to have that. But yeah, so that's some of the shortcomings that I see with Linux right now. I am loving that a lot of people are ditching Windows 11 for good reasons. For good reasons. And moving to the Linux Mints, the Bazites, the Garuda Linux. I'm gonna have a video on the Garuda Linux, so stay tuned on the channel. I'm gonna show that off. And just have open tools, free tools, and just use your computer as you see fit instead of how they want you to use your computing device. So it's great. I'm loving it. I'm loving that the shift is happening. I was on the shift way early, but it wasn't the time. And now it's the time and everybody is going. So it's great. But anyway, I hope this helps some people out there, give them better insight about like Linux and Linux can and cannot do well. So that way you can make a better informed choice if you're going to get a Linux handheld or if you're buying a mini PC. I'm an advocate for both. And just game on, because you know me, it's all about gaming out there, guys. So until next time, I hope this helps. Peace, love, stay gaming.